Took about 20 minutes.
That's
Well, I'll just call it to order. We were at
Yes,
6
go
o'clock
ahead.
and I'll wait,
Go ahead.
just in case for a few minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll call the meeting to order, 6 o'clock. We're gonna see if we can get hooked up to the internet like we're supposed to. If not, we'll move on as present attendees here. I don't think we have anyone that calls in. Nobody can call it.
You don't have that call.
Yeah. Notice was posted in accordance to Wisconsin statute 19.84 open meeting law. At this time, we'll ask the secretary to read the notice of public hearing.
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Monday, April 7th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Burnett County Government Center in Room 165, Town of Meenan, Siren, Wisconsin, regarding the following. Variance 2429 Lindell. Public notice is hereby given to all persons in the Town of Union, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Robert Lindell has made an application relative to a proposal to vary the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances as follows. To construct a new garage at a reduced road setback at 2885 and 28887 Bluff Lake Road in the RR2 zoning district, Lot 1, CSM Volume 27, page 226, Section 9, 4017. The variance 2433 with Keasley will be postponed until next month. Variance 2501 Shear. The public notice is hereby given to all persons in the town of Wood River, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Chester and Connie Shear have made an application relative to a proposal to vary the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances as follows. To construct a new garage at a reduced setback at 22704 Hanson Point Road in the RR1 zoning district, Lot 19, CSM, Volume 31, page 132, FKA Lot 19, Hanson's Point subdivision, sections 33 and 34, 3818. Variance 2502, Blueberry Hill Court. Public notice is hereby given to all persons in the town of Oakland, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Jeffrey Grates, on behalf of Blueberry Hill Corporation, has made an application relative to a proposal to vary the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances as follows. To expand the dwelling more than 25% on a parcel that is non-conforming for dwelling density at 6720 Hayden Lake Road in the RR2 zoning district, west half of Government Lot 1, Section 3, 4016. Variance 2503 Otten. Public notice is hereby given to all persons in the town of Meenan, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Jason Otten has made an application relative to the proposal to vary the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances as follows. To construct a new garage at a reduced wetland setback on the parcel with tax ID 11585 in the RR3 zoning district, the west 6 acres of the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter, section 193916. Variant 2504, Johnson Lake Pines LLC. Public notice is hereby given to all persons in the town of Oakland, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that John Willard, on behalf of Johnson Lake Pines LLC, has made an application relative to a proposal to vary the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances as follows. To construct a new dwelling at a reduced wetland setback located at 28457 Johnson Lake Road in the RR1 zoning district, Lot 5, CSM Volume 31, page 52, and Government Lot 1, Section 144060.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, approval of the agenda order. Do I have a motion to approve?
I would make a motion to approve.
Motion by Peterson to approve,
Seconded.
seconded by Schmidt. Any other discussion on the agenda order? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting procedures. The hearing is being recorded, so we ask that only one person speak at a time. When your variance appeal request is announced, we ask that whomever is presenting the case, that you come to the table, sit in the chair. You will then present your case to us. The board may ask additional questions during this process. Once you're done presenting your case and the board has no additional questions, you will return to your seat. The board will then open the public hearing. Those speaking during the public hearing will have a 3-minute time limit. When you are called upon for public comment, please start by stating your name for the record. Make comments to the Board of Adjustment members only, no questioning or arguments between individuals in the audience. Any written correspondence received will be mentioned at this time as well. Once all public speaking is concluded, the board will close the public hearing. The board may then follow up with additional questions for the applicant. The board will then deliberate the case amongst themselves, and you will likely have a verbal decision tonight. The board may table or defer action whenever it concludes that additional evidence is needed or further study is required. If a decision is made tonight, then at the next Board of Adjustment meeting, the board members will sign the decision document. Once that document is filed in the office of the Board of Adjustment, usually within a few days of the board signature, the 30-day appeal limit will start. Any person aggrieved by this decision or applicant, officer, department, board, or bureau of the town or county may within 30 days after filing this decision in the office of Board of Adjustment, commence an action in circuit court seeking a remedy available by certiorari. Comments and public hearing. At this time, we will call variance 2429 Lindell to construct a new garage at a reduced road setback.
I'm gonna recuse myself from this.
Do we have someone for Lindell? Oh, come on up, please.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Brookshaw, Rivers North Construction, and working on behalf of Bob Lindell for the construction of a new garage on his property that we understand what the issues are with that. And thank you for taking this variance application under consideration. The issue that, as I understand, initially it's been asked that the doors of this garage not be facing the road. And the problem that we have with that is that there's not enough buildable real estate on this parcel to turn the garage a different direction. Because of there's a near sheer bank on the lake side that you couldn't stand on it. It isn't sheer, but you couldn't stand on it. And then there's another trail that goes down to the lake on the south side of it that similar issues with that causing a problem with it. Actually, I have a plaque here that can demonstrate that for you if you'd like.
We have it,
If all documents were provided, I believe, unless there's something new.
unless there's something new,
I can demonstrate to you what would happen if we tried to turn the garage.
okay?
So this pink label is laid out on there with the 10-foot setback from the side lot line as well as from the road. And if we were to turn this is the garage doors on this end. And if we were to turn that, staying outside of the setbacks within our buildable site, to face the garage in a manner that we could still have real estate enough to drive on to get into the garage, it would look something like this. So the corners of the garage are within the buildable area of the setbacks. But what happens is you can see this line right here represents where the top of the bank is. And it's right there hanging over, and we're approximately 10 to 15 feet in the air over that edge of that bank. And on this side where that indicates this trail goes down, there's a sharp embankment that runs right along the edge of that also. And so in order to be able to have drivable access, we would have to have it positioned about at this angle to be able to get into the garage. Turning it any more would prevent any sort of a driveway to be constructed to get in and out of the garage. So that's why we're requesting that the garage be built as the plat indicates there, showing the drawing of the garage. Doors do face the road in that circumstance. The thing of it is that there's, I don't have this measurement, maybe Mark does, but there's from where the garage was built, there's a fair distance off from the roadway itself. And there's room enough to park a vehicle. If the thought is that a vehicle with a trailer can be parked there, that's true, but who would do that? There's room enough with the layout such as it is in order to construct the garage and have the vehicle parked in that location. It'd be very awkward to try to turn the garage and in this scenario that I've demonstrated with the little label here, it couldn't be done because there's nothing to build on. It's too high a bank. It would be extraordinary amount of foundation work to support it near that corner of the garage. So we're requesting the garage be permitted to be built as shown on the plat.
Did they ever think about just moving the doors with the building in the same thing, coming off the gable side instead of the gable side, it's soffit side? Cause I mean, that's typically what we've had happen in this thing. The building can stay that versus, cause we've had a lot of concern over the years with close right of way access to the road, backing out onto the road because there's no turnaround coming out of that garage with the way that it is. We've had multiple circumstance where we've denied because you're backing straight out into the road. And so we've always requested that they just move the doors, which would be to the west side, if I'm not looking at it.
Kind of to the southeast side.
Because the building would stay in that position, but you're just taking the doors out of the front and moving them to the side.
Yes, understand your comment. The doors would be again on this side of the garage. The layout of the garage inside, because there's an art studio on this end of it, would restrict it down to, instead of the 3 doors, they have to go down to 2 doors or 1 big door. But the problem that still exists is there's this area right here that's marked trail on the map. This takes a pretty fast dive downhill. And again, there's a large embankment there. And the angle that the garage is drawn on the plat would still not allow a reasonable access into the garage. And you can't get doors coming in this way because we've got too much terrain going downhill right here.
Any more questions from you guys or anything you want to present?
May I add something?
If you can, quick, we asked that only one person to go ahead. That's,
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. State your name, please.
Robert Lindell. Understand from the last meeting that there was a question about previous approval of another garage. And that garage was approved and that does face the street also. And my neighbor, next door neighbor, has a garage that's facing the street. Which was approved and built 2 years ago. And also I might remind everyone that's a dead end road. If that their consideration.
Nope, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other things?
I don't have anything.
Nope. If not, you can go ahead and take your seats and we'll open the public hearing. Any public comments? Hearing none. We can close the public hearing. And the board will deliberate amongst themselves. This is one that was from last year.
Yes.
And that was, like I said, memory from what I had, but I think I'm correct in that, is we talked about that with a 10-foot setback, backing out onto the road, and that's been fairly a consistent plan by past and previous ones. Unfortunately, I don't know which one the gentleman referenced. To go back and say,
It's in in the staff report. It was variance 2114. So it would have been
21.
in 2021.
Yeah.
It was about 500 feet north of this site. Variance was granted for a garage at the same setback, 10 feet, but
at the same step, okay.
But there was no
No.
restrictions,
no restriction on the door
On the door.
placement.
and I think that's why we started putting restrictions on the door because of that variance. It was allowed that to put on the side. Right, isn't that?
I think though we've been doing it longer than 21. Yeah, that one might have just got missed.
Well, that can happen. It is a tough lot. That trail, that would, if you have to make them turn that garage door facing the west or towards the house. First of all, as Mr. Brookshaw said, you couldn't skew it because you're in no man's land, because that bank is 15 feet high. We look at all of these. Every one of us have been out and looked at all of these properties on the variance, so we spend a little time looking at them. We would be, if the garage doors went on that side, it still is gonna have to be cut down to one door, and then it's almost gonna cut access down for him to get to the lake, to use that lake, right? Cause that's what that trail is. I didn't walk to the lake, but I would imagine that trail goes down to the lake, and as you say, it's not a very wide road, and you can tell it's a dead end road that doesn't get used very often. It's not like backing out onto a county road by any stretch of the imagination. We have said in the past that we consider not having a garage a hardship to keep stuff under storage. And the board has said that. So that's my thoughts on it.
Kathy, do you have any comments on?
Yeah, I just think that property limitations here are pretty extreme. That we have to allow for that.
Mr. Test unique property limitations. The applicant talked about the steep slope limits to buildable area. Talks about unnecessary hardship, mentions again the steep slopes and the buildable area, the uniqueness of the lot. And public interest. Applicant claimed there's no harm to public interest. Bluff Lake Road is a dead end road, as Member Peterson mentioned, and with minimal traffic. Again, there is no black and white sometimes, because
Right.
each road and each character uniquenesses, that is the whole intent of this committee and this purpose. So I just wanted to address those three things.
And each one is treated separately.
Correct.
Each variance is,
Yep.
it's their own variance. There's no precedent.
Yep,
is set.
we only like to try to remember similar cases to stay consistent, but it is by definition, this is a unique 100% hearing, so. I don't have any further questions. If not, then I could entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the variance. And we would just go with what the staff commented on. That a land use permit to be obtained prior to construction. Proper erosion control to be placed during construction. And to follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
I have a
Oh, and then I think the containers, of course, would have to be moved because the garage is gone. Right, they'd be moved off the property, is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, I think that was the plan. The garage was gonna replace the containers. Yep.
I have a motion by Peterson with the three conditions and mentioning the containers removal. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Schmidt. Any other discussion on variance 2429 Lindell to construct a new garage at a reduced road setback? If not, all in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carries. You have your variance.
Thank you.
Mr. Campion can join us again for the rest of the meeting there. Yeah. All right. We are postponing 2433, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so variance 25501, here, is that right?
Yes.
To construct a new garage at a reduced road setback. You go ahead and come on up and state your name and plead your case, please.
Yeah, I'm Chester Shear, trying to build a garage on 22704 Hampton Court Road. Basically for storage, so I can get my pontoon and everything else in the garage. And we're trying to get the 10-foot setback. So I don't take too much of my front yard because the cab house is right there. What I'm trying to do. There's a shed there which would be removed. That would come out. Well, like the shed, I think it is. That be removed. And the garage door will be facing south away from the road. We'll just turn in.
There's room to back there because I tried it.
Yeah.
It's a one-story garage, right? Not a bunkhouse.
Right, yeah,
It's the storage.
yeah, yeah, just storage up above. I don't have too much storage in the house.
Anything else you want to add? Any questions?
I have no more
Applicants have?
questions.
Nope. If not, excellent.
Well,
You can
thank-
take a seat.
All right.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing for variance 2501, Chair. Any public comments?
Rosie from White, we did the site work there. Basically, what they did is they vacated the old road that was just to go right by the property there, and so. We vacated that portion of the road and then they retained where the existing town road was there, so that's what gained a little extra space there, so they even had the opportunity to ask for that. The impervious surface areas are very tight, well, this, you can see this is only a 13,000 square foot lot, so it's very small to start with. We did have a couple other options on that. Originally, if they wanted to be 10 feet from the road line, if we moved it 10 feet closer, we could get under the 30,000 square feet because it'd be on the gravel area, which is already impervious. It doesn't make it any better site, but it does, I mean, you could move it close to the road and become more compliant based on the impervious. We've also shown all the stairs, steps, decks, and everything else there that's impervious that don't necessarily always count because the stairs are narrower than 5 feet and so forth. So some of those areas don't include, so it's actually a little bit less than 30%, which we have shown on our map is the worst case scenario. The difference between the shed that they're being removed and the gravel in the new garage is only 300 square feet. So that counts about 2%, and that's what it goes from what it was 29% to 31% based on our calculations for the impervious. So just the difference of 260 square feet makes 2% in this case or considerable.
It's not a lot of margin for change.
So there is, yeah, so, and hopefully there's some area room on the, as you were on the site, you saw it was pretty flat on the top. They should be able to put some rain gardens and gutters up on the top side there that aren't very deep. That would affect the wells or the septic system. That's something that they'd have to work out with Emily, of course, at the.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, we can close the public hearing and the committee will deliberate. Any further questions you guys might have, concerns, after hearing from the surveyor?
So this one, I sent you guys conservation comments today. Like I mentioned, they were buried in my email.
Did you get any copy?
You know, I guess I don't necessarily. She had 3 points in there, about the impervious area.
Is it 30% as the metric
Yeah.
number? Yes.
And so she had her recommendation was doing shoreline restoration. I don't necessarily think that should be the case on this one. They're not within the 75-foot setback. So I probably wouldn't make that condition on this one. And she also brought up the shed near the lake should be removed and restored again. They're not really doing anything within the 75-foot setback, so a lot of times we don't kind of make
New storage.
concessions in that regard, so that's just my thoughts on that, so.
Especially since the size of the house and the new garage are relatively small. I'm sure that it'd be nice to have extra things down by the water.
That addresses that comment, so good.
So my staff comments, I'll read them this time, so you don't have to read them if you're gonna approve them. Land use permit to be obtained prior to construction. Number 2, overhead garage doors to be on the south side of the garage. Number 3, I do agree with Emily's thought that there should be some rain gutters on the garage and direct water to a rain garden and rock trench. Work with county conservation staff for appropriate size location. Number 4, proper erosion control to be in place during construction. Number 5, follow local, county, state, and federal requirements for the sector.
Definitely one was even site. Definitely see the great difference. I'm like, from the last, this garage is up 6-8 feet in the air. It's not, no one's gonna drive into it, accident. That's not so close to the road for that. Really couldn't put the garage doors on the roadside anyways.
Yeah.
And it's a dead end road again.
Yeah, there's
I don't know if it's a dead end, but it doesn't look like a very,
It's a dead end.
10 or 12 cabins past there, but it's not.
yeah, that's not what we used to.
No, I think unique property limitations, size of lot doesn't have much to be built in there. As the applicant stated. Matters, so. We look at unnecessary hardship, there's a gating portion of the platted road to gain more property, lot side doesn't allow much room for building the garage. And we may need an area in the south side for future septic. And the third category, no harm to public interest. Not building near the lake, again, behind the 75-foot setback. I don't have any further questions. Anything by other committee members? Good, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve variance 2501 here with the conditions, the 5 points that Jason just read aloud. And yeah, that's all I need to say, I guess.
Motion by Schmidt. Do I have a second?
1 second.
Seconded by Campion. I have a motion to approve variance 2501 Shear by Kathy Campion. Land use permit, overhead garage doors, rain gutters, property erosion control, and follow local city were the 5 points that Jason mentioned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to approve variance 2501 Shear. Have your variance. Thank you. 2502 Blueberry Hill Corporation to expand the dwelling more than 25% on a parcel that is non-conforming for dwelling density. Jeffrey Grass, and the Children's Generation Shareholder of Blueberry Hill Corporation. Blueberry Hill was a resort from about 1918 until the sleeping cabins and lodge became Blueberry Hill Corporation in 1863. In the early years, guests often arrived via train to Danbury and then first start to the resort. There are 10 dwellings at Blueberry Hill. My grandparents bought into the Blueberry Hill community in 1972. My family frequented it, Grandma and Grandpa's cabin while we kids were growing up. The cabin eventually transferred to my parents, and I and my siblings often brought our children to their Grandma and Grandpa's cabin while they were growing up.
Although I feel Burnett County has been a part of me all my life, it is now that my wife and I desire to make the family cabin our residence and Burnett County our home. To do this, we need to add some space. The addition we have proposed would replace the main floor bedroom with a larger bedroom and an additional bathroom, as well as add storage space in the lower level. With the existing dwelling of approximately 1,250 square feet, this modest addition increases the size by more than 25%, and therefore needs your approval. When I received the staff report this past Thursday, I learned of the 3 violations listed in the report. The first is a retaining wall at my unit. I will obtain the necessary permits or remove it by November 1st, as recommended in the staff report. Now, the second violation is a deck at unit 4 that does not have a land use permit. I was able to contact the shareholder at unit 4 over the weekend, and they have told me that they will work to resolve that issue. The third is a deck at the yurt dwelling, which is unit 8, that does not have a land use permit. I was able to contact that shareholder of unit 8 last Thursday evening, and they have been in contact with the zoning office and are actively working to obtain the necessary permits. We have considered other options for our planned addition. Jason has been very helpful explaining the code, but we realized we would need a variance for this project to meet our needs. Thank you for considering our variance request. My wife and I look forward to making Burnett County our home.
Any questions?
I don't, I do all of that.
Yep. No, that's fine. We can have some dialogue, so that works, so.
I think he explained it very well.
Yep, and it's also written in the application. We kind of forget that. We go through, we forget, so that's why my tabs are good this time. At this time, we'll open public hearing for variance 2502 Blueberry Hill Corporation. Any public comments from anyone in attendance? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and the committee will deliberate amongst themselves, ask any questions, go from there. What's that?
There were comments that were emailed in, sent in.
Yeah, you should have in your packets, you have comment from Carrie, Cruz, who's the one to the north, I believe. And then Peter and somewhere. Maybe papers. Peter and Margaret, on the unit to the south, so. Both have no, and yeah, the owner of unit 8 has reached out to me. At the yurt site, I've talked to her 3 times on the phone. I haven't heard yet from the other two.
So what's a refresher when you have a property like this with 10 units on it, all violations go to the corporation then?
So it's all treated as one parcel.
That's what I'm saying is because it's unique, you know, like I said, that, you know. In 1918, they formed this, and then 63, they all bought their 10 shares in the corporation. So now, because of the unique parcel characteristics, if unit 8, which you have in a sense no ownership of, you're a 1/10 shareholder or whatever. They're, you know, like I said, it's interesting. Yeah, to say, okay, there's violations on other units, yet we legally are defined as this is one parcel. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
One parcel, they get one tax bill for the
Yep.
whole property. And then they must divvy it up somehow in the corporation. Yep, but it's one tax bill for the whole parcel.
Absolutely. I digress.
Hope you get along.
You'd be under pay grade. Things up. Where's my man? I had a question. You mentioned 1,250 square feet is about the current. Okay. Main level and lower level. Okay, I had 1,100 when I just was looking at first footage here from whatever, I don't know where it was, because that is pertinent when we start doing 25% of and stuff, so. And did you have, I had about the additions 416, is that about what you guys come up with?
And I just want to add too, that you will see the list of all the permits for this property.
Yep, there's,
There's been other ones in the past. So it's been, shoreline zoning started in 1971, so prior to 71, there would have been no rule.
Correct.
So since that time, there's been various permits issued. You will see that somebody wanted to completely rebuild their cabin. They had to ask for a variance. There was some other additions that were done in the past. Those had limits of 144 square feet back at that time. Because that's what the old rules used to be. So yeah, there's always been, since zoning came about, there's always been limits on the amount of work that can be done on each one of those
yeah, we're
cabins.
looking at that, that's about a third of them are additions and or rebuilding the dwellings, which obviously makes sense when you think.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna have to rebuild them or
You
do
know,
work.
construction techniques and codes change, shoreline zoning, I mean, that's
Lifestyle changes.
correct. Yeah, 600 square feet used to be big and plenty. Any other questions from board members? I'll just state, when you look at 40-foot like center line roads, one of the things that we also do is look at consistency, and that if you look at unit 3 right next to it, this addition would not change any like character. They're about the same setbacks as you go through stuff like that.
I like the impervious surface for the property is pretty low. There's still a lot of room to cabin one. We're not crowding anybody.
And we're definitely way back from the 75-foot ordinary high water mark setback, which is always.
There was a staff comment about getting individual site addresses. I don't know if you're putting that would be nice.
Sure. So back in 2014 and maybe 2015, we were able to with the county on this topic of finding numbers to do with Gammon. And at that time, I just learned of this even in the thing on Thursday, and I thought this was. So I was able to contact Jerry Kraus, who was one of the shareholders at Unit 6, who led the effort to resolve the issue with the county back in 2015. He was able to forward me a few emails from that time frame, and so I have some of those. I guess I'd like to read in kind of the final two emails was an email at that conclusion. This is from Nate Ehalt, the county administrator, and just a couple of sections of this. Hello, Jerry. I apologize for the length it has taken to get a simple sign issue resolved. Thanks for your patience and understanding. Jerry responded back, Dear Nate, thanks for your continued assistance in the signage removal here at Blueberry Hill. Speaking on behalf of the community, we're very grateful for the result. Best regards, Jerry. I guess my point is, this topic came up 10 years ago, and the corporation worked with the county at that point, and we came to the agreement that we would leave it. We would actually return it to the way it was with the single number. We did provide a map and the location of the units. We've numbered the units individually, and at that time, the county assured us that they would be able to actually input that data into the 911 system so that the emergency response folks could come to the right unit when they came into the property. So we feel like that's been resolved and would just assume not have that as a part of as this variance application.
Thanks for the information.
I'll just keep my mouth shut about it. You guys decide what you wanna do. How's that for an answer? I'm not the county administrator. That was his directive back in 2015, so.
Oh, that was county administrator.
Yeah, we went through and renumbered all of those and paid probably $1,000 for signs and all at the county expense, and then we had to take it all back down, so,
Because of the county administrator.
yes.
Can I ask what the problem with having signs?
Oh. Well, we have had, I know in the past, we've had some issues with when you have one parcel, then issuing more things, but it sounds like we've already went down that path twice, whether it's right or wrong. But it wouldn't make sense to require it if, you know, I'm more concerned, like I said, practicality.
Yeah.
I know as being on a fire association for 10 years and dealing with addresses, the complications that firefighters have, and that was when we had folders on everything, and now guys don't pull out a folder anymore, it's on their phone. So hopefully the department dealing with this will know, okay, this address has 10 unit numbers, that sounds like it makes sense to me, because it addresses the emergency and response issue of it. Back and forth between to then put in our variance and make Jason do the legwork again and possibly be whatever. It's like, my thought is, all we care is that EMS and the emergency services know where they're going. I think the letter dictated that, the unit numbers dictate that, and we can check. I don't know what firefighter department is. It is Webster.
Oakland, yeah.
So Webster Fire responds, so they're the ones that need to know that when this address comes up at Blueberry Hill, that there's 10 units.
Usually departments.
Correct, yeah, everyone does too, but
You were gonna say something, why don't you want them?
Looking back through the emails, there were concerns at the time that, for a short time, we had the numbers up, and we did notice an increase in the foot traffic and people that are not part of Blueberry Hill actually coming in and on the property. So we felt like it was a security issue, and we wanted to
They have a fire number up, or was it a security issue?
encouraging folks to come in and treat it like a public space rather than a private space.
What's the thought of the public road?
I guess I don't understand.
And I've only had a couple of days to kind of get familiar with what happened. I think if we wanted to resolve this further, I think we should do that in a different forum at a different time. It's just my thought, but. So.
well, I think we could address that when if a motion were to be made on whether that's included or not on stuff. Any other questions on Blueberry Hill?
Other staff comment was to correct all the big three. The retaining wall and the other decks. Makes sense.
They listed in the second and not staff, oh, they are in the last page.
The purpose is really well. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Dan, were you talking about the new lakeside deck and then the new deck constructed at the yurt?
Yeah, those, yeah.
the violations
Correct.
and the retaining wall, okay.
Correct.
Alright, I was just flipping pages, had to get back to where we were. I don't have any further questions. Entertain motions.
Would make a motion to approve 25 with the staff comments of land use permit to be obtained prior to construction. Other unpermitted items, violations to be resolved, corrected by 11-1 of 25, including obtaining proper land use permits. Dwelling not to exceed 2 bedrooms per sanitary permit, SAN 2473, and follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity. I think that was,
And you're okay with not having fire numbers on each one of these individual places that you want, but
yeah, at this time.
chief of the fire department for one of you, you're still okay with that?
I just, yeah, we thought there is, put them through it again and then have to pull it down again. It'd be nice to get that resolved, but that's.
I'm sorry, could I ask for clarification? My only question is how many are year-round residents? Cause I'm thinking about the post office. That in my head. If it's a year-round, they might require a fire number, but I don't know, maybe not. That was my thought when that was discussed.
They have a fire number. It's just it's shared by
It'd
10.
be one that just like
It's shared by 10 cabins.
it'd be just like an apartment building at 70 through 50 with unit 1 through 16 hypothetically. But I would ask, do you want to comment on anything or you recommending? I know that I know. Okay, I just making sure.
Sure.
Because it doesn't bug us.
It doesn't bother me either. I just put it in there.
Yep.
How I would look at the problem.
No, and I'm thinking at other stuff that we've done, I know that, like I said, I have a parcel next to me in Anderson that a guy put up a garage and they wanted another address for it on the same parcel, so it's
Yeah.
stuff that we encourage because it does clarify some things like this, but if we run through the gamut again, and like I said, ultimately what we're asking is that the departments know, you know, what it is, and with the technology now, I think that it's fine to say it's.
Well, unless it's an ambulance run and at 12 o'clock at midnight and an ambulance runs, somebody else up. Who knows what happens? And now we don't have a fire number. We've got one fire number, we've got 10 buildings. And then the ambulance is running into one of these 10 buildings to try to find it.
And it may come to a situation like that where they have a problem and they come back and say, we'd like fire numbers.
Yeah.
To speed that up.
But I just stated that you did it 25 years of your life, you were on that, so it's really not for me to say if you're good.
It's a good question.
I don't have a problem having it in there either. Because I think, you know, whether or not it gets in an argument if the current admin wants, for whatever reason.
I would make a motion to second variance.
I have a motion by Campion, seconded by Peterson
And
as,
as the, and we're gonna get rid of number 3.
and the 3 violations are
Have to be
contingent
corrected,
on approval. So. Motion by Campion, seconded by Peterson. Any other discussion on variance 2502 Blueberry Hill? If not, all in favor say aye.
Yeah. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to approve variance 2502 Blueberry Hill. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we'll open variance 2503 Otten to construct a new garage at reduced setback, wetland setback. You'll come on up.
Hello. I'm looking to build a cold shed just for storage, cold storage. I don't know if it was in there, but the door would be on the west side of the building. So it's kind of close to the road. It's kind of hard to enter it from directly from the road to the that one, the driveway kind of loop down from the west.
You're meeting the road setback, so there would be no concern in theory about the garage doors, which side they'd face. Other than you actually wouldn't want them on the wetland side, because then you'd have to fill in a bunch of stuff, so it's, yeah.
What is the size of this building?
36 by 60.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
I think there's an extra line or something.
Yep, I was like, I kept going as, which way is it going?
It looks like,
We're given setbacks, right? Where you can set back.
Yep. Yep, okay, and I wasn't the only one, so good.
There's about 281 square feet inside the, I guess, in that corner. And that's about the only place on that lot you have any hope of getting.
Yeah, it was the only place we could put the building. We've been trying to figure out how to get a building in there for years.
You need a permit, I think, covering up more than 261. No, that clarifies the little things I had. Any other questions for committee members with the applicants?
I have no.
At this time, thank you so much. We can open up the public hearing for variance 2503 Otten. Construct a new garage, with reduced wetland setback. Any comments from the public that is here? Hearing none, we can close the public hearing and the committee will deliberate amongst ourselves. I think unique property limitations, again, as Mr. Peterson said, the wetland area, and this is about the one spot that even with the variance is capable to get up the structure. You look at two, unnecessary hardship. I think we talked about that, even saying, you know, the other option would be go on the south side of the parcel, but then you have to do a wetland fill and you'd be filling more square footage that's just in the temporary zone of the current building. And no harm to public interest. I don't think that this is removing enough from the road that I don't think anyone will notice. It's my opinion.
So who determines the size of culvert that goes in that big ditch?
It'd be the township. Just a lot of the townships have a driveway ordinance and they would, I don't know how they do it. I'm kind of figuring.
Two ways, I'll tell you from my experience.
So hopefully they maybe go upstream and measure that
I've-
culvert.
I've
and
had-
be like, okay. put
I've
one in
had
roughly
DNR
this-
come and help us with a couple road culvert projects. We do flow studies. They do mapping of the creeks, flows, calculations for things like that. Majority of the time, the town, like I said, oh, it's a 24 foot and it's overflowing, we'll go to a 36. Practicality of it. I will state, like I said, it was a very good learning experience, but it turned replaced two 18-inch culverts into a bridge. Year-and-a-half project with the DNR and flow studies and all that, and it's like, so we want to do it right, but sometimes we also want to put culverts in. From a town perspective. That's what we said, a lot of times it's existing culverts are there. And usually we'll upgrade them just because you can. If you're digging it out, put a bigger one in just in case. But a lot of the towns will look at their road maintenance guy and say, hey, do you have issues? I have one that's between Town Anderson and Trade Lake. And they upgraded it, but then they flowed the ditch differently and it actually is flooding that, you know, they're having issues with that, but there isn't a simple answer. But it's kind of the up to the town road maintenance guy to replace and get things done. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's failures and you need the road back up and running, so you don't have time to run through the DNR process. It's like roads closed about it, so get one in there.
Yep.
We're deliberating.
We're just.
Bueller? Ford, first. Look at the map.
Things of impervious surface is not an issue.
Big parcel.
Seems to meet all three rules.
Motion, then, if no one's got any other questions or concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve variance 2503 Otten, and staff comments that we would like to have met are: number one, a land use permit to be obtained prior to construction. 2, site address for this parcel to be obtained by 7/1/25. And 3, follow our local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
I have a motion by Schmidt. Do I have a second? Campion, second by Campion. Any other discussion on variance 2503? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries to approve variance 2503 Otten. Have your variance, sir. Thank you. Was one. At this time, we'll call variance 2504 Johnson Lake Pines LLC to construct a new dwelling at a reduced wetland setback. You'll come on up.
Hey there, thanks for taking the time. Here the thing, I've got a map here, can I distribute?
You certainly can.
Sure.
If it's something possibly new.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of information. So there's some couple pictures of cabins I've built or may build or something, but basically the front page is the most important. One of the blues is kind of a rough sketch of where it's not a very good sketch, but it's a rough sketch of where I'd want to put that cabin. And Wagner Surveying has a better drawing than what I provided you there, but the yellow area would be the septic area is what I'm proposing to do there. So, but also on that sketch that you can see is the cabin to the north is fairly close. You know, there's 700 feet of shoreline on that lot. It's an old lot that was created a long time ago, but there's 700 feet of shoreline. And I don't really want to jam a cabin right up against the neighbors when I have 700 feet of shoreline. I'm just trying to push the cabin out onto the peninsula just a little bit to give it a little more space. The other factor there is the red dots that you see on the map that I provided for you. Those are eagle perch trees. So the Johnson Lake North Bay is really a special wildlife bay. And we have an active eagle nest on the other side of the lake. But those are perch trees where those red dots are. And those eagles sit in those trees a lot. And I'd rather not build a new cabin like right underneath those eagle trees. I'd like to push the cabin out on the peninsula. I'd rather push it further out than that, but I figure that's about the most I could get away with is pushing it out a little bit, and then we wouldn't be right underneath those trees and messing that whole ecosystem thing up. You know, we're asking for 25 feet. Jason had determined it was 20 feet. We can work with that and push it out to 25, but we're asking for 25 feet from the wetland area, which is the same as Washburn County. It's the same as the state of Wisconsin. So if we were in Washburn County, we wouldn't even be in here for a variance. If we're asking from the state of Wisconsin, we wouldn't be in here for a variance. It's only because Burnett County has 40 feet from the wetland area. So we're not asking for closer to the lake. We're able to maintain 75 feet from the shoreline. I'm just trying to tuck a smaller cabin into the trees. It's better suited for the neighborhood. You know, it's kind of a wilderness bay. And I'm, you know, in those pictures I gave you, those are like little wilderness cabins that I've done in the past. I just want to put something that blends in. I don't want to build some big old chalet that like sticks out like a sore thumb. So you're out there, you know, on the lake and you look in and there's two big cabins like right next to each other. I told the neighbors I was going to try and keep the cabin away from them as much as I could. And that's all I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to push it out just a little bit. You know, and I think the septic will be further from the lake. The eagle perch trees will be further away from them. We're in line with county and Washburn regs, but you know, I need a little bit of relief from you guys if I can get it.
Any questions from committee?
I have no.
Why don't you wait, right, well, we'll wait right till public comment then, that way we get one person speaking at the presentation, so. If that's all you have, you can,
Thank
Have a
you for your
seat.
consideration.
no problem, thank you. At this time, I'll open public hearing for variance 2504 Johnson Lake Pines LLC. Mark?
Or, I know Jason talked to me after he was out there and questioned our south, the question of the corner there being close to the west. And I tested those. We did elevations out there and everything, so the elevations are really steep and possibly. As you know, it was under flood stage for, you know, about 3 or 4 years in a row there. And so some of the high water marks have either compressed or changed a little bit and so forth out there. But what we ended up doing is tracing the elevation around. And so what we have on the lake side is the same as what we have on the wetland side. Whether that's correct or not, that's how we did it. When we were out there after Jason noted that we were only about 15 or 20 feet from the wetland on the backside, it was up to the grass. That grass, we shot at 20 feet, and I don't know when you guys were out there, because I know I followed Jason's tracks out there about a week and a half ago. Since then I put in some orange flags and some pink flags. Pink flags are the line we showed as a high water mark. The orange flag is a 100-year flood. And so the 100-year flood was even in the grass and the wetland side, about at the 20-foot mark where it was. So that's the 100-year flood. Johnson Lake was probably about a foot above that 3 years ago when it flooded. And so things are deceiving. If you look on the lake side, it's real consistent. It looks just like it should. It comes to the toe of the slope, it's ordinary high. Floodplain is about a foot higher than that. Just to let you know, the 100-year flood is 969.5. The ordinary high water mark is 968.7, so less than a foot below it. So it's about half a foot, 7 inches or 9 inches difference. And so it's quite very minimal. When we were out there, the water on the wetland side was about a foot higher than the lake on the ice, which I don't, you know, so it's either perching in there, so that's what made it look even worse out there because the elevations we took last fall, when we first measured this, we're in 6 inches of water this spring. And so it is, you know, the water was higher there, and so it looked, you know, you can't argue there's water there, so if the water's that high, you know, it is what it is, so. But we have the opportunity, we could slide it about 5 to 10 feet to the northwest down the shoreline and still maintain the same setbacks. And get away from that little corner there, so I can see, you know, if you just slide it towards the building to the northeast there. We could easily slide 10 feet or so, so we maintain at least 25 foot from the high tester. For that southwest corner.
Yeah, be going up to the top right.
In the 75-foot setback.
That doesn't, yeah, I don't. Seeing like it accomplishes a much deeper, how do you look at that?
I think somebody else has public comment.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jason Harper. I'm the landowner just to the north of Mr. Willard's land. And I just wanted to, thank you for your time tonight, but also,
Is that the house on the map by chance?
yes, that's the house
Okay.
that Mr. Willard's trying to avoid building right next to. You know, as Mr. Willard said, the North Bay, more of a pristine and natural area of the lake. Larger lake lots, my lot is just shy of 2 acres, Mr. Willard's lot is just shy of 5 acres. And because there's so much wetland in the area, you know, my cabin is where it is. And Mr. Willard has, you know, limited options. He doesn't want to build right on top of my cabin. So I believe that, you know, allowing this variance to help maintain the natural character of that in Upper Bay and Johnston Lake. In addition, you know, I have wetland along Johnson Lake Road, along the north side of my property. Mr. Willard, I don't know how much wetland is there, but I would estimate, I don't know, 50% 50% or more of that 5 acres of wetland is quite a bit. And, you know, I think there'd be minimal impact to any wildlife or, you know, the ecosystem of the wetlands, just the sheer abundance of all the wetlands in the area. I think with any, with you know, modern construction techniques, and having gutters in the dwelling, I think, you know, further things can be mitigated as far as any wetland concerns. And again, it's, you know, 25-foot setback. It's not the required 40 for an apps cover. That is very common throughout Wisconsin counties. It's 75-foot setback, it still be maintained to the lake. I believe that allowing variance will still respect the land use and the zoning regulations of Gwinnett County, but it will also help maintain privacy and you know, just separation of families. So thank you for the consideration.
Thanks. Any other public comments? If not, we'll close the public hearing and deliberate amongst ourselves. I was just saying that if I look at that map and Brad, he's saying, and I think he's talking about sliding it 10 feet that way. I don't know if that.
Well, you wouldn't have to slide it very far to get it out completely.
Well,
You
you
still
still want it, but yeah.
And
like I
that's not
said,
moving very far towards this house over here. I mean, he has options available to him.
Like I said, that's the big picture. I don't see whether it's built here or here, that's gonna affect the wildlife.
Right.
So I think it's really.
You got the shed and the house underneath the eagle perching trees. Right next to it anyway.
that. Jace, do you know any of those rules? Is a perching tree different than a nest?
Actually, yeah,
Huh?
yeah, quite a bit.
Okay, because there isn't a nest there.
No, there's no nest. The nest is
Okay.
on the other side of the lake, so.
Right, just so
The
happens.
nest, you know, you can't build at certain times
Yeah,
of the year. and all
my
kinds of
neighbor
stuff, yeah.
Superior has one there and he's like, he has to wait until the thing falls down.
We love the
It's
eagles.
like,
I mean,
wait a minute.
we'd like to just give them as much room as we can, but you know. It would be disturbing to, you know, put a new building right underneath those.
I was just curious if it was a
Like
nest or a
storage
perching
Yeah.
thing, definition wise, because I did
Yeah,
have some information that I thought might be pertinent there, so. Any other questions for committee members? Concerns, thoughts? Like I said, Brad, you're talking, one of the things that we talk about is if there's a spot on the lot that they can put it, and I think that's what you're talking about.
I am, I look at
Even
this,
though it's closer to those perching things.
well, and you're not putting it right next to the house, you're just moving it a little bit to the north and the east. And it looks like you could get outside, still be back from the 75 and be outside the 40. And you wouldn't even have needed a variance, you could have pulled a permit. You could have just went in and staked it out there and pulled your permit without a variance. I mean, you have options available to you that I see.
I do understand that, but what basically that means is that I put the septic site out where I wanna build. And I build where the septic site, where I wanna put the septic site. So I'm just flipping them is all I'm doing. So that way the septic's further away from the lake and it's further away from the wetlands. The septic's in the right spot. I'm spacing out the buildings a little bit. And they're, you know, if you're out on the lake and you're driving around the lake and, you know, you're not looking at two buildings that are kind of like right next to each other. They're spaced. I mean, you got 700 feet of shoreline. Why stick them right next to each other if you don't have to? You know, it's not a huge request in my view. I understand it's a request, but I'm trying to do the right thing for what I think for visually. You know, you're putzing around out on the boat, you're looking at the shore and, you know, it affects the other neighbors on the lake. Sticking the house kind of right there, just, I can tuck it into the woods. You know, and I'm willing to build a smaller house and tuck it into the woods. So it has less impact. And that's what I'm trying to do here. You won't really be able to see it. I'm not asking for any setback variance from the lake, I need a little relief from the swamp. But everybody up and down Johnson Lake Road, half those houses are closer to the swamp than 40 feet. I mean, it's pretty commonplace up there.
But were they built within the last, were they built this year?
Yeah, some were they weren't built in the last year. No.
I'm just saying
yeah.
that maybe.
Devil's advocate,
You don't know.
we go by our county standards.
We go by our county, not Washburn County, this is Burnett County. And we have the, 3 criteria we're supposed to try to hit. And I just don't see this as an unnecessary hardship. I can't put that in my mind that is.
I think it's like the right thing to do for the lake and the property. That's the way I see it.
How will it hurt the lake by moving that building so it meets the setbacks? How
I
will
just
that?
think the visuals from, you're out there on the lake and you're looking in there, I mean, having buildings clustered together. There's gonna be one building on 700 feet of shoreline. Why would we want them clustered right next to each other,
I think you have room that you're gonna put it within a few hundred feet of the.
120.
You're like 120 feet from your neighbor. If you moved it to your setbacks to get 40 and 75.
Yeah, kind of in front of them and affects their view. You can see the angle of their cabin and stuff like that where it looks and, it kind of, we had,
You don't have to build it to 75-foot line either. You could push it back. I think what Brad said about the three-step test that we look at, no harm to public interest. Probably good there, but unnecessary hardship, but I'm thinking about unique property limitations. Now, the previous property was a unique property limitation. Here you've got a pretty good area of buildable area in the back.
Then I still think you have room to get your septic. To build that size cabin. Inside the 46 by 22 cabin and still have plenty of room for a 2-bedroom conventional system.
I'm trying to accept a smaller cabin to get it where I think it should be versus, sticking it right next to the neighbors. I just think it's the wrong thing to do. And I have a lot of pride in the stuff I've built in the past and I've done really good work and I've worked with previous administrations in both Burnett County and Washburn County. And I'm just trying to do what I think would make sense and would be good for the neighbors. And, there's all around Johnson Lake, people are closer than 40 feet to the wetland. I don't think I'm trying to rob the bank here. I'm just trying to get a little bit of relief so I can do what I think is the right thing to do. I'm not asking to be closer to the lake. I just think it'll fit in better. I think people driving by in the boat, it's sort of a wilderness setting on that lake. It's like a Canadian wilderness bay out there. I'm just trying to, do the right thing, roof lines or tone colors, make it fit into the trees. Rather than, have it stick out where it's very visible. So I'm just trying to do what I think is the right thing for the lake.
I was just gonna say, as me being a neighbor, I do appreciate what he's attempting to do here as well, just because Mr. Willard and I get along well with each other. We prefer that our cabins not be right next to each other.
Understandable. We've made that point. Appreciate it. I do. I kind of agree with Ed that there's a buildable site on this parcel without variance needed. That I don't think has any undefined characteristics as the applicant said. So.
It's still, looking at the real map, it's still wooded up in that area. It still looks like it's pretty wooded yet. as far as blocking the view from the lake.
I think compared to so many other homes on the lake too, the distance that you would still have, even if you moved it into the area we're proposing. You have a lot more separation than many, many people on lakes have in this county.
Probably 95%.
Yeah,
That's part of the character of that natural bay though. I mean,
right,
you know,
absolutely,
it's
but I
kind
think,
of a wilderness bay. It's got loons out there and it's got the eagle nest across the lake and, I think it would be the right thing to do. I mean, I'm asking for 15 feet from the wetland. I'm not asking for anything from the lake. It doesn't feel unreasonable to me anyway.
Understandable. Any other questions or concerns? If not, entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to deny the variance.
I have a motion by Peterson to deny variance 2504. Do I have a second? Second. Motion by Peterson, seconded by Campion. Any other discussion on variance 2504? If not, all in favor say aye to deny.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any paperwork to sign, or you do that after we?
No, there's, cause you guys, those were already signed.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because we had the long interim.
New
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Motion by Grant's, seconded by Schmidt. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.